Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Scott Garber back in the saddle again with another amazing guest that is doing groundbreaking, transformational things in the youth sports space. We're here to highlight leaders and thought leaders and innovators in the space. It's not my story to tell, so I am super excited to go ahead and bring on our next guest, Matt Kurowski. Don't hold me at the altar if I mispronounced it, but Matt, my man, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks, Scott. And you pretty much nailed that pronunciation. So thanks.
Let's go. We're off to a good start, man. So, Matt, as we start to dive into all these conversations, I think it's so important to get to know the human behind all of the amazing work you're doing in the sports space. To kick the conversation off, who is Matt? What did you come from, and how did you end up as the CEO of I9 Sports?
Yeah, thanks. Great to be here. Appreciate you having me on here. So real quickly, I won't bore you too much with the career background, but early part of my career, lots of marketing work. So worked in the agency world, got to get exposed to a lot of different business models by working with a lot of different clients in various industries, and kind of realized I was hooked on understanding what makes a business tick. And then I took a round at Under Armour, jumped into the big brand world, and man, what a great experience. At the time, we were on this amazing, crazy growth trajectory, and wouldn't trade it for the world. Learned a lot there. Got exposed to every part of that sports space through my time there. Ultimately, found myself in operations. I can't help but get into processes and structure and how do you make things work better and more efficiently. And found myself then in franchising, and I can't say it was intentional. It happened. It was actually intentional to join another really great youth sports organization at the time, and they were in the franchise space. And I joined them because they were in the youth sports space, and then came to learn a lot about franchising. And now here I am. I joined I9 about 2 years ago, moved into this role as the president just this year. After our president of 17 plus years retired, Brian Sanders, great guy. I find myself now working in franchising, helping others achieve their business goals while getting to be in something I'm passionate about, which is youth sports. And I don't take that luxury for granted. I'm really, really grateful to be able to be in the seat I'm in today.
Very cool, man. Very cool. A lot to unpack there. And we're seeing a through line as we run these conversations that it takes strong operators in order to go ahead and really roll out these large scale operations. And so we're going to touch on that later in the conversation. But for all the listeners who aren't aware with I9, might not have kids yet, give us a little taste of what the brand is. And yeah, we'll sort of start there.
Yeah, great. So we've been around about 20 years, which is, crazy in our space. As always, started by a founder who saw an opportunity, 20 years ago to serve youth sports, to fill a space that needed filling. We are franchise operated. So we have about 250-ish territories around the country. We don't have brick and mortar locations. I can dive into that more if you'd like, and about 160 franchise owners. So these are folks who buy in, get a franchise, and then they're responsible for operating in their territory, obviously under our brand name and within our standards. But they're really where the magic happens is, through our operators. And our model, and I'll be happy to speak then, later if we want to dive deeper into about where we're going, but where we've been for 20 years is really this league model on weekends. So the bulk of our business, and we've got 600,000 registrations that'll go through I9 this year. We just hit our 5 million mark this year, all time, which is a pretty awesome number to celebrate. But they're playing leagues. They show up on a weekend, have a practice, play a game, and then we'll see you next Saturday. And it really fit a need of convenience and not looking for overcommitment, in the sport. So that's what the bulk of our business is today, and the bulk of our offering today is that league model, which we are going to be and certainly are evolving, as we go forward.
Well, look, at no time like the present, right? So let's start to go ahead and talk about, you come into this role, you're here for a year now. We'll backtrack on some of the learnings and, what challenges you faced. But where's the brand going as, sports is becoming, more prevalent downstream? We're watching it become more of a commercial entity. Where do you see the brand going?
Yeah, great. So, I don't want to throw a whole lot of stats out there. I know there's been plenty of folks who can quote stats, but there's one that kind of kicks me in the gut every time I hear it. And it's the statistic that 70% of kids drop out of sports by the age of 13. And, that's the American Academy of Pediatrics, but that same quote or some version of it has been, uncovered in other studies. And, that stat doesn't sit okay with us, at Nine Sports. And I recently talked about that at our national convention and back in August when we had the whole community together. And we agree that's not okay. And we need to continue to do our part to be an option for kids. And there are a lot of great options out there, right? There are hyper competitive, which is great. There are kids, we talked about Hershey, PA before we got on here, but Hershey, PA has Christian Pulisic, who that kid, man, if you ever talk to his parents, they couldn't keep him off the field. He just wanted to play all the time. But that's not every kid, right? Not every kid is looking for that. So how do we make it fun? How do we give them options? How do we meet the parents where they are? And as I look at 20-year foundation, which is amazing, of our 1 day a week league that I mentioned, that's great for a certain, audience. But we have a lot of families who are saying, I want more. What else can I get with I9 Sports? And our mission is to help kids succeed in life through sports. And ever since I moved into this seat, I've been throwing the word all in there, to help all kids. And that's ambitious. That's grandiose. I know that. Certainly don't think we're going to reach every single kid, but we have to do our part to make sure every kid has an option. And so we're doing things like evolving our model and evolving our offering, where we don't have to only be the weekend league company. So things like camps, we've done camps for years, week-long camps, but we haven't, it's never been a core part of our model. And this past summer, as part of our relationship with youth enrichment brands and, of course, U.S. sports camps and their long-standing relationship with Nike, we were able to offer for the first time Nike Kids camps powered by I9 Sports. And it's pretty awesome. Pretty great brand to be associated with. And we rolled it out on a smaller scale, but the families who did it loved it. I mean, the feedback we got was phenomenal. And we brought in new players, but we also saw a lot of our league players saying, yeah, I want to camp too. I don't only want to do a league with I9. And it tells me that our families don't put us into that weekend league box. They love their experience with I9. They want more of it, however we can get it to them. So camps is one, training and technique development programs is another. So one I'm personally pretty pumped about is a program we're calling our League Plus offerings. So again, those families that want 1 day a week, awesome. But you can sign up for 1 day a week league and add a weeknight training program every week. So if you want that extra training with a professional coach who's going to teach you technique, and man, we are rolling that out in a number of markets and seeing a huge interest in that. So again, I think it's about meeting families where they are and staying 100% true to who we are. We're not trying to be all things to all people, but being I9 Sports in ways that matches what families are looking for.
It's really exciting to get a glimpse into, where you guys are shifting things and evolving things. And you sort of dangled the carrot there with Youth Enrichment Brand and the umbrella that you guys are living under. And it's really neat to watch with pure strategy how these entities can work together. And, I think that, we always have this optimistic view of what it can look like. It's always neat when we watch it move into reality. So we're going to touch on that, as we get later in the conversation. One thing that I really wanted to dive into is because you guys are working with kids and parents for that matter, although it be 1 day a week right now, at a really formative age. And so sports is this environment where we can teach life lessons. How do you guys at I9 think about layering other life skills, whether it's, mental health or financial literacy is a little earlier, but all these different things that we can teach in sport that go outside of the, outside of the field or the court. How do you guys approach that with your operators and bring it into communities?
Yeah, sure. That's great questions. Sports obviously inherently have, some great learning, lessons to be learned just through the playing of the sports. But we go, I'd say a couple steps further with the intentionality around that. So one way that comes to life in a real tangible way for us is our sportsmanship values. So every week, whether it's the soccer game or it's the baseball game, after the game is over, the coach takes the team aside and pulls out one of the kids from that day and takes the sportsmanship value for that week. Let's say it's teamwork, and says, hey, here's how Billy demonstrated teamwork today. Not just, hey, Billy, did you get your medal yet this week? But, hey, Billy, here's why this matters. And here's where teamwork comes into play in your life. And here's how, how we're going to recognize that as a team for you today. And then gives Billy his medal. And we have heard just tearjerker stories about how much impact that has, just having Billy get that medal that day and being recognized by his coach. And We do that very intentionally, week in, week out. It's not left to chance. It's part of our standard. It's built into our brand standards. It is expected of our folks to do that and to do it consistently. And I think it's one example where, as a business, as a franchised organization, we have the ability to be more intentional about some of those things and not leave them to chance and cross our fingers and hope that they happen. So that's one area. But it's also through just kind of the way our programs are structured. So we don't have tryouts, we don't have drafts, you don't have cuts, and it's giving a kids a chance to play, and it's teaching them that just because somebody else might be a little better than you at this doesn't mean you don't deserve to be out there on the field and having a good time. And don't get me wrong, we keep score. There's wins and losses, and there's divisions, and there's league standings. So that's part of it too, though. You learn how to win with grace, and you learn how to lose with grace, and learn it's not all about that only and only that. And again, I think it's just the intentionality, and it's not just with the kids either, it's with the parents too, right?
Sometimes those are the harder ones to teach, right?
they they certainly can be. And we love parents. I mean, parents are awesome, and we're I mean, at our size, it's amazing how fortunate we are to have such great parents. It's not often that we have situations that get past that, but I think that too is because of our intentionality. We have a parental pledge like many organizations do, but we stick to it and we reinforce it, and we have parent meetings, that are virtual parent meetings preseason, and we have folks who float around the fields and make sure that they're having a nice conversation with parents to make sure the parents remember what they're there for. And those lessons trickle down to the kids too. When the kids see their parents behaving that way, the kids also realize it's not just about winning or losing or whether the right call or wrong call was made, by the referee that day.
Refreshing, really refreshing, right? And I think that we sometimes lose scope of how powerful this entity of sport can be, and it comes from not always a bad place, right? I think there's like emotions drive real passion, but at the end of the day, we're here to nurture, develop, and ultimately build culture within community. And so it sort of dovetails into as you guys expand into new markets, this is going into the franchise lane. Talk to us about is it an inbound that you guys are finding new franchisor to grow the brand? How do you put the right people in the right positions to make sure that you get the right end product for the kids?
Yeah, great questions. One of the things that's super cool about our brand, and I've been in franchising now for a number of years. The biggest source of leads for us, for folks who come looking to buy a franchise, are families who have experienced our product.
Cool.
It's awesome, right? I mean, it gives me goosebumps when we talk about it. And the number of calls I've been on with candidates who have said, I loved it and wasn't even sure it was a business, wasn't even sure that this was an opportunity, did a little research and said, wow, I can actually do this. I can actually make a living doing something I believe this strongly in. So yeah, it's inbound for the most part. Folks come looking for us, and we do draw a lot of people who a thread throughout our entire network. They can come from a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different business backgrounds, careers, you name it. But the thread that runs throughout is that they care about ROI, which is, pretty unique to be able to have that in our space, to say somebody can be that excited about what we do, not just the business opportunity that it presents. And it's a real business opportunity, for sure. But folks are drawn to us first and foremost because of ROI. And that's cool, because we don't have to teach that then. We just get to teach them how to run the business. And that's the easy part. We can't teach people to be passionate about it. So yeah, we haven't been around 20 years and having that many territories. Yeah, we don't have as much space available as we once did. Plenty of opportunity where folks are still coming to us. So now we have parents call us and say, well, I know the territory I play in isn't available. How about the one next door? And it's been really a cool thing to be a part of. But yeah, that's how we grow. And then there's a vetting process. I mean, they have to go through all the appropriate steps. We're not looking to just put another pin on the map. That's not the way we're looking to grow. We're looking to grow with the right people. And it's probably one of the biggest decisions we make as a franchisor is who joins us as a franchise owner. And it's a huge decision for them too. So we make sure they're doing their due diligence and that we're doing ours before we bring anybody on board. I'm sorry about that.
No, I think that's imperative, right? And I mean that's it's the lifeline of the business, and ultimately it's the face that these kids will be introduced sometimes for the first time into sport, through these folks. And so I was just curious what that process looked like. One of the things, Matt, that we hear over and over again is resources. How do we provide the right resources downstream, especially as we move into this hyper growth scale, whether that is just in traditional lines of business or into new lines of business as you guys are going? Talk to us about what that relationship was, maybe pre youth enrichment brands, and now that you have this monster behind you, how you guys are able to lean into that resource pool and empower your folks downstream.
Yeah. First of all, I love how you asked that. I appreciate that, because that is absolutely how I see being a part of this platform, is the addition of resources and knowledge and expertise and all of that sharing. But, I'd say generally speaking, it's as the franchisor, we provide the key support to our franchisees, right? So we give them marketing programs and that are turnkey. We give them curriculum. We have an app that is every bit of the curriculum is on there. So when a volunteer coach is at the field and wants to remember how to run a soccer drill that moment, it's right there on their app. The technology, our own proprietary software platform, which is incredible. All the data in the world is in that thing. And it's a one sign in, opportunity for our franchisees to be able to jump on there and get to everything they need. So I think, as an organization, I think we've run lean but effectively, for 20 years, 18 years. And then this partnership with YEB and frankly acquisition, comes in, and there's more resources on the table for us, which is why I love that you use that word. I'll make maybe some tangible examples. We have an IT team now we were always really good at IT, and now we're world class. I mean, when there's a problem, and there always will be in technology, we have a team that can scramble very, very quickly and address it, and have, exponentially more resources at hand to be able to address things like that. The part that gets me really excited, though, is just the knowledge share that we have across the platform. I had Rob Price, who was the president of School of Rock, who's part of the YB platform. I had him as a keynote speaker at our convention this year at I9 Sports. And you might first go, well, you got a music guy at a sports franchise convention. And our franchisees loved him because he's doing what we're doing, but through music. And it's pretty awesome. That brand is doing what they're doing, but through music, and impacting kids, and focusing on bringing kids out of their shells and developing as young adults. And and Rob's been there, done that, and so I can pick up the phone and call Rob and have a great conversation. Justin, my boss, at YEB, I mean, been with US Sports Camps forever, and founded by his family. Well, there's an awful lot of knowledge there that I'd be crazy not to tap into, and we're doing a really great job, I think, as a platform, sharing that, having that right balance of being able to operate as our own brand and operate, independently where it makes sense, and then being able to tap into the shared resources that we have across the board. So it's been really refreshing. And frankly, when I joined the team, it was one of many things that was really attractive to me, was knowing that was there for us, that we weren't on our own.
How cool, man. I mean, it's always neat. We, sometimes we speculate on what's going on, do they really work in cohesion there? And like to hear it from the horse's mouth and then watch the end product, start to roll out. It's just really neat to watch that full cycle come. I'm going to drill down a little bit, Matt, into more you on the CEO side, right? And I'm always curious, you've reached what some would call the pinnacle of the career, right? You've climbed now through different corporate jobs. Now you're overseeing a large franchise organization. What are some tips and tricks that you do to make sure that you're staying sharp and educated and relevant, sometimes even ahead of where the trends are going? Where do you go to find, to sharpen the tools?
Yeah, great. Your podcast certainly is a resource, but for sure. I mean, I was on a plane recently. I probably listened to 8 episodes of your podcast, but I go out and seek out that information through podcasts, through some of the leaders out there like Aspen Institute, right? Who has just a wealth of data. Again, I know they've been on your show. fantastic amount of data and information there's trying, so on the sports side, there's so many of those resources that I tap into. On the franchise side, active in the International Franchise Association, so attending their events and trainings, etc., and to learn from others about how they're cracking the code in franchising. um, those are a couple areas. Read everything I can get my hands on when I have time. And again, though, back to the network that we have, this YEB platform, and frankly, even just work at the next level, there are some gurus in those roles, and I'm a sponge, so I love to soak up as much as I can. When I get the opportunity, I tap into it. There's members on our board, et cetera, who I wouldn't have access to necessarily if it wasn't, being in the role that I'm in. Really grateful for that, and never stop learning from them.
I think that's the name of the game, right? To be insatiably curious, and as sports as the asset class has just opened up now over the last few years, and we're watching at each level it get really, really impacted, right? The pros, now college with NIL, and we're watching this now move downstream more and more and more. Are you guys feeling any of those ripple effects? With you guys working with younger folks that are younger kids and age groups, or are they sort of church and state? I'm always curious, like how you guys feel, what's going on upstream in the market.
Yeah, I think there are certainly impacts. I think maybe some sport specific impacts. So like flag football is one that just comes to mind. It's being played at the highest levels. Pro Bowl, Olympics. It's pretty cool to see that. Well, there's no question that's helping to drive an increased interest in flag football, and we've been in flag football since day one. That was our flagship, and so to ride those trends and to capitalize on those is certainly somewhere where we see the impact from the highest levels. I mean, I think when you start talking, NIL, which is such an interesting hot topic. I live in Michigan, and there was just a big change of a number one QB in the country, through an NIL deal. But it's here, and it's reality. And I don't think I could say I'm pro or against it, just the reality. But it does trickle down, and I think we do have to manage to that. Not I mentioned Christian Pulisic before. Not every 6-year-old soccer player is Christian Pulisic or aspires to be. Finding that balance of sports for the sake of sports versus as a path to, greatness and elite, competitiveness is something that we do have to manage. And I think some of that is with education with parents too, because they're being bombarded with that. I have a 17-year-old son. He's a great athlete. He's looking at colleges, but not to play sports. And not because sports hasn't had an impact on his life. It's had a massive impact on his life in a very positive way. It's shaped him who he is. But I see the emails coming. I see the letters coming, and I'm going, are you going to go to that school because of that sport, or what do you want to do with your life? And it's hard because they're bombarded with that from a much younger age. And so I think our role in that is to provide them a great opportunity, provide them an option where they can go play flag football on a Saturday and have a blast and not have that noise, around them. So
Refreshing again, man. And I think that's the purity that we talk about here at Profluent. It's like sports is this coveted ecosystem, and there is a lot of liquidity and there's a lot of capitalistic opportunities. But, Matt, I think you'll nod your head, from your days in PA. I learned all of life's lessons in sports, and then I got to apply them to, everything outside. And so it's really neat to see organizations like yourself embody it from the leadership perspective and then have it sent all the way down to the future leaders of society. So really, really exciting stuff there. What else should we know about I-9? Where, I think that, we've sort of covered a few buckets, and, give the listeners any hot takes or things that are coming hot off the press.
Yeah, I think some of those new programs that we're rolling out will definitely be a huge thing for us in 25 and going forward. I think one other thing I would share is, and I hope it doesn't sound too cliche here, but the other stat that always catches my attention is that most kids who quit sports are quitting because they stop having fun. We're seeking to crack that code on having fun, and fun looks a lot of different ways as we've talked about. And so to me, if we can get a kid to say, I want to play next week again, I want to sign up again next season, I even want to go play somewhere else, we've won. We've gotten them to, and we're making a dent in that 70%, dropout rate, which I think is our responsibility, honestly. It's not just what we're aiming to do. I think we and all other organizations in youth sports have to think about how do we keep kids coming back and playing, because if we don't, they're missing out on all those experiences that shape their lives, and that you can only get through, that youth sports experience.
Listen, man, I totally agree with that through and through. And fun does look a lot of different ways. For the uber competitive, it's more that I want to go out and win and develop my skill. And some it's just what, I get to go hang out with my friends and do this on Saturday. And I have a 2.5-year old, and we have an I-9 here in St. Pete, Florida.
Oh, cool.
And so I'm really curious because, we work with so many founders, right, that are at the beginning of this journey. And so Frank, who started this, I think is in our backyard here in Tampa. Yep. I'm curious, do you stay in touch with him, and, how involved does he stay? Because I imagine it's got to be a rewarding, yet maybe sometimes challenging to watch your baby now start to take on a life of its own. So I'm curious, like, what that handoff or relationship looks like now.
Yeah. It's an awesome question. I've been around a lot of founders, by the way, in franchising. And what you often find is somebody who's really good at making a pizza, or somebody who's really good at teaching a gym class, teaching, a strength training class, but isn't super interested in supporting 200 others making pizzas or teaching a class. And Frank's an awesome guy. He has been nothing but supportive to me. Frank made the decision a number of years ago when he brought Brian on to really give him the keys, which to me says a lot about who Frank is, because it is his baby, and I know it's still his baby. I still sometimes, even if he listens to this podcast, I'm going to be thinking, man, what does Frank think? When he hears that, because I think it's my responsibility to keep carrying that on, what Frank created. But he absolutely stays connected. He stays connected to the franchise world. I know he stays connected with some of our network and with our team. And Frank and I will text, pretty frequently, just checking in, just seeing how he's doing. After you all got hit by the storm recently, checked in with the series of storms, checked in with Frank. So, but I've seen founders who don't necessarily do that either, right? Who don't know when to bring on those others around them. Frank very early on recognized what he was great at and where he needed that additional support around him. I'm just glad that I'm still entrusted to carry his baby, for the foreseeable future.
How cool is that, man? And I think that's a deeper sense than self, right? And, I think that's one of the biggest nuggets we can take away from this is like, hone in on what you're really good at, but it's that supporting cast in order to take it from a local activity to now you guys are a national brand. Like you said, you just crossed the 5 million mark, which is just, that makes my hair stand, like the arm hair stand up. That's a lot of impact that you guys are doing. So really neat, but I was excited to pull that one, and especially with him being here in our backyard, we'll have to connect all those dots. But Matt, this has been incredible, man. I think you've given us sort of a master class on, I-9, the franchise world, private equity and how you roll up, and then all the exciting things on the horizon. So I have one question for you. It's totally out of left field, so you don't know it's coming, but personally and professionally, Matt, if you could tell the listeners one thing you've done in your life that you would recommend they do in theirs, what would that be?
Oh man, I would say that, again, at the risk of sounding cliche, like force yourself out of the comfort zone, and into something that you don't think you're cut out for, or that you're made for. And I've done that throughout my career. I've kind of identified what's next for me, and I'm going to get after it. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. But either way, you get something out of it and learn from it. And I think, looking back, I'm glad I did that, even though in some cases it was tough and it was painful. I'm glad that I've forced myself to do that.
That's awesome. I think get comfortable being uncomfortable. We're going to end it there.
Love it.
Matt, this has been an incredible conversation. Thank you for taking the time to make all of us a little bit better. And most importantly, the work you're doing to make the youth sports environment accessible for everybody to play these amazing games. So keep on keeping on, and we'll have to do this again and pulse check once you guys roll out all those new events.
Great. Thanks so much for having me on, and thanks for everything that you do to keep this front and center, Scott. I appreciate it.
Awesome, buddy.